Nkosi Talk Shows family, is Nomsa here at Nkosi Talk Shows. Find your own voice, lead from within. With me today is Angie Simmons. How are you, Angie?
Hi, sweetheart. Hi, everyone. I'm fantastic. Thank you very much.
Awesome, awesome. So our topic today is 3 simple ways to strengthen your relationship and keep love alive. And are you someone who is trying to strengthen your relationship and keep love alive? So we are going to talk about the topic, and we'll be discussing ways to build trust and create meaningful connection with your significant other, from communications tips to activities to try, and you'll find all necessary advice for maintaining a happy and healthy relationship. Tune in to find out and how to keep the spark alive in your relationship. Angie, you chose this topic. Can you tell the audience what was in your mind?
Well, it follows up from last week, I suppose. But when I chose the topic, I was thinking more importantly for me was, excuse me, I've just finished work and I have dog hair in my eyes and it prickles sometimes. It was more, I was going through this situation with my daughter, going for auditions in London. She was getting highly stressed, highly tired, hungry. I called them mungries because she turns into a monster. And, sometimes when somebody's going through some stress of their own, they can automatically take it out on you. And I found that quite a few times with the relationship with my daughter, but in other relationships that, we don't do it deliberately. I've never done it deliberately, gone out my way to upset anybody. But sometimes we just offload on the people that are closest to us. And I think sometimes, we get in our own head that they're being this, they're doing that, and blah, blah, blah. And we're not actually thinking about their feelings and what they are going through. So going on the topic of communication, with my daughter at one point when she'd come out of her first audition, we'd been traveling most of the evening, and she was extremely tired, extremely hungry, extremely stressed out because she'd been in this audition from 8:30 in the morning right through till 5 p.m, and it was non-stop. So she'd not really had much chance to eat. She was stressed out because she'd not had a rest, but then she was also in her own head about how well she'd done. And as soon as she saw Mum, it was like, right, let's have it all out, because she'd been in a room full of complete strangers who she couldn't really talk to. And as you well know, Nomsa, in that area of, that particular, what's the word I'm looking for? What's the word I'm looking for? That particular, it's gone. It'll come in a bit. It's very stressful and it's very competitive. So she couldn't really offload or talk to anybody. So as soon as she saw Mum, it was offload. And
I call it is a cruel world.
Pardon?
I call it a cruel world, the acting industry.
That's it, industry. That was the word I was looking for. Because I was thinking, what is that word? So yeah, in the industry, it's very cutthroat, very, competitive and stuff. So she'd had all these emotions building up inside of her all day. So then when she saw Mum, it was like, right, I can let it out now. But unfortunately, it came out as aggression and, nastiness. And I had to sit back, and instead of retaliating and going, don't speak to me like that, which I've done in the past, who the hell do you think you're speaking to? Don't treat me like that. I've done all this and I've done all that and blah, blah, blah. I actually sat there and I went, what's going off with you? And I just lowered my voice and just said, what's going off with you? And then she just went, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, okay. And she was like, what did you think? And when I told her what I thought, she was like, oh, Mum, no, I'm sorry. So if I'd have retaliated out of, don't speak to me in that way, because I'm very much boundaries. I won't speak to you in that way. So please do not treat me that way. So when people do treat me like that, I can really take it, offensively. So the fact is, I actually took a step back. I went quiet. I let her get it all out. And that's sometimes that a lot of people don't do. We're on the back foot, waiting to retaliate. And 90% of the time, that person is not trying to be horrible, or they're trying to get their thoughts and feelings out, but they're not very good at expressing themselves because of where they are. So my first tip to anybody is take a breath, let them just get it out, and then just ask, what's going on with you? Because what a different outcome I got just by taking a breath, taking a step back, letting her get it all out, and then just to find out that she was hungry, she was tired, she was stressed, and she'd not been able to talk to anybody all day, and she was worried about how her audition had gone. Does that make sense? I'm not sure, have you ever experienced that, having children?
Yes, I have had experience, but my children, they know I've trained them to chill out. Yes, they've been in the industry for a very long time. I call it is a very, very cruel world. I tell them to chill out because at the end of the day, you do what you can. You do your best. Even my spouse, I tell him, when you look after the family, you are there as a father, you do your best. But when it goes to a point where you feel strained, that means there is something wrong. When you go to sit down and stop and find out, why do you feel that? Or why do you feel that for what you are doing for your family, do you feel that you can do more? But why do you feel that you can do more? Why what you're doing now is not enough? So I always say, in order for you to be able to provide more for your family, you have to appreciate what you do that moment. You have to see yourself as worthy, because if you are able to raise the kids and do your best as a father, that moment, the gratitude, when you look at your children and say, you know what, I'm doing my best as a mother, as a father, and then God is able to bless you more. But then if you feel they are strained, you wind yourself. I laugh when everyone goes on one, I laugh. Honestly, you have to explain when somebody goes on one. For me, I tell my children that there is no point. When they go on stage, I said to my daughter once, when you go on stage, you do your best. So I wrote something like their doors, like when you dance when you are in pain. You act when you are in pain, you put the feelings together, and then you get all those feelings out. There's no like, I want out. When you say in, you're in, all in. So you got to give it all. So one day I made a mistake. I left the CD at home. I picked up the wrong CD, and my daughter was at the final and plays the music. She goes on stage, she goes confused, and the judges are like, what's going on? And she goes, it's the wrong music. And then she went and said, okay, I know the dance by heart. If you let me dance, because that's how I trained her, that you don't go, when you do something, you don't go and say you're going to be stressed. You do something because it gives you joy. And I say to my spouse, you date me because I bring joy to your life. When you come to a place where you feel that I bring pain into your life, then I'm not the right person for you. So you got to feel joy when you're with me, even when life is not too good. You should be able to actually scream. When you scream, I'm out of the door and I wait for you until you come down so you can scream at yourself. So my daughter went, I know the dance by heart, let me dance. And the doctors, the judges, two of them, I think they were from Doctor Who, and the other ones from somewhere, celebrities. And they were like, yeah, you go on then. So she danced, the dance is so graceful and so beautiful. And she came second. They penalized her. She would have come first, but because she didn't have the music, so she came second. So yeah, but it is I don't want to lie to you, Angie. It's a cruel, cruel world. My daughter wanted to do acting professional, but I made sure that I didn't want it to keep going on, and I found a good agent for her, started giving her work, and she was like, you know what? I think I'm better off becoming a banker, not not acting professional. It's not her thing anymore. She does it for money,
Right.
but it's not her priority anymore. But if anybody, like what you're saying, that your daughter comes out, she's screaming, it happens in relationship. And you just have to be, somebody has to know how to respond in that situation. When the spouse comes in, they're screaming. You have to know how to respond, because they are crying out. It means that something is not right inside. But if you say, what the heck is going on, and you go on one, everybody's going to go on one, and the tables is, everything will be smashed. So might as well look and just calm down.
Not as easy as we
No.
make it out to be, for sure. But yeah, it's been the
It's
best
not easy.
medicine.
It's not easy. If I sit here and say it's easy, it's not easy.
No.
And yeah, for me, I tell my family and my children that you don't scream at me. I'm like, if you scream at me, I get confused. But if you scream at me and tell me what the problem is, then my daughter yesterday, she wanted to buy something. I said no. And she was like, can I buy this? And I was like, when you are negotiating with somebody, you go and get what you are negotiating and hold it in your hands and negotiate and wait for the answer. But if you negotiate whinging and screaming, I ain't gonna listen to you. So that's what happens in relationship. Some people think when they're in a relationship, you have to learn to communicate, and not in a manipulative way. Some people manipulate it to get what they want. But that's not the right thing to do, because that it affects the fights in a relationship. It's not about winning.
No. See, I think that goes back to being a child, doesn't it? Some adults have not grown up, because that's what we do as a child, of scream and stamp our feet to get our own way. And unfortunately, some adults have not quite figured that out yet. That adults don't work.
I was talking to my client day before yesterday. She goes, Nomsa, what do I do? Do I go for coffee when you match me, or do I go for a meal? And I was like, if you go for a drink. So I was like, if you go for a drink with someone when you go for a meal, that means you're going for an audition. You still need to go to a second date to get to know them, because when you go for a drink, you don't really get to know everything. So I was like, I suggest you, if you find the right person, I suggest you go for a meal, because for a meal, when you go for a meal, you order drinks from the beginning. When you ask for menu together, you are observing their attitude. How are they behaving? Asking for menu from the beginning and asking you, what's your favorite food and what are you going to have? And when the waitress comes in, you see, you watch, you observe how they are communicating with the staff. And then when you order the starters, then you're observing everything, how they are behaving. When they order the main course, you are observing everything. You're not judging, but observing everything, because that means you've seen it all. You've seen everything. So I was like, that's how me as a matchmaker, that's how I take clients on. I meet them for a meal. That is called mini date. I go on date with men. And that's how I accept them as a client, that I can work with you. I want to work with you. But if they are rude, they are what, I refer them to my coaches. They have to go through the coaches before I can accept their money, because that means they need to do some work. So I said to her, that's how it works. When you go for a drink, you're just there, you're auditioning, the guy is auditioning and you are auditioning. Basically, you're having ordering drinks, nothing, you don't see anything. And then later on, you go for a meal, maybe you develop feelings with somebody, the wrong person, and then you go on a second date, then you go for drinks. So it's like, I suggest you go for a meal. We don't do drinks at Hope Springs Eternal Introduction Agency, we do meals. So she was like, okay, yeah. So the communications is very, very important, Angie. I agree with you. And And also your daughter, she needs to get used to it because, yeah,
I have
needs.
been having this with my daughter since she was little.
And mostly it's the children who are amazing, and I bet she is amazing. Mostly the children that are amazing, they are the ones who screams and shout because they believe that they didn't do enough. What I did once, I went to backstage because my daughter, they're in the dance school, so they were doing competition. So the 6 of them, they're all dancing different dance. So they're all like scared going on stage. They're talking how they think they don't know the dance. So I was like, okay, can we just take this, the dance that you guys are doing, let's put it on the side. And then I was like, play the music. I'm an African person, I can dance. So they put the music on. So I was like, let's dance. Let's dance like you're not in a competition. Don't think about you are in the competition, but think about you are in this place where there's a beautiful place without any problems. Let's just dance for 5 minutes. My daughter goes, here we go again, mom. So we dance. I can see the children, they're like dancing and dancing. Then I left them alone. When they went on stage, all of them, they came out number 1.
That's like nobody's watching.
Yeah, because it's the attitude. Everything is attitude. When it comes to relationship, it's the character, it's the attitude. Some people have some talking problems. There are some women, mostly, they have some talking problems. Men have some attitude problems because they are not well-cultured men. So a man, for me, growing up as a child, I didn't see my father telling my stepmother off, and I didn't see my stepdad telling my mother off, but not because they didn't. They did. Trust me, there were lots of fighting without me, but because when a man is well-cultured, they know that they are raising the kids. The kids shouldn't have to go through this pain when they're arguing. They know that they need to take their fight somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they fight. So I asked my mom, did you fight with my dad? And she's like, oh, that father of yours, that stepdad of yours. Yeah, it's not that they didn't fight, but they did, but in secret.
You see, I was brought up with lots of fighting.
Oh, me, I didn't.
So that's one of the reasons why I remember with my ex-husband, when we talked about our daughter, and I said, the day we start falling out in front of her,
yeah,
the day we will end, because I won't have that. And it did happen. And that's when I said, I said, come go downstairs outside. And we went to the bottom of the garden. And I said to him, I never want to fall out in front of her. Relationships, you're going to have that clash, but it's having that respect for each other. And I just said to him, I said, I never wanted this, and I do not want to fall out in front of her. If we cannot talk properly as 2 grown adults about something that's happening, then this is where we need to think about separating or going our different ways. But I didn't want her. I remember, that those feelings of listening to the screaming and the shouting, and I wanted to find a cupboard and hide in it. I hated it. And it left me, growing up with that, that good enough, because nothing was ever good enough. My biological father was very aggressive in the way he put his opinions across. You see, when you said earlier about men have got that aggression, but sometimes as well, they don't talk. They don't talk about our feelings. Women live it 90% of the time. We have it on our sleeve and we'll just go, bleh. And then some, a male might be like, well, I don't know how to deal with that, because they've been taught, oh, stiff upper lip. No, men don't show their emotions, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's, it's not helpful. Yeah, but my biological father was very, with his way or the highway type attitude. So that's one of the things. And if anybody is falling out, it doesn't matter who it is. If they are falling out in my vicinity, I just get out of the way. I will just leave. And I have done it before where I've just literally got up and left. And they're like, where did you go? And I was like, that's one of my boundaries. Don't be falling out in front of me. If you, as a couple, I've got a problem with something, do not be falling out in front of me, because that's it.
Because at the end of the day, Angie, it's not about the screaming and the shouting. You have to look at the children. The children are innocent. And when you have these kids, they are growing up, they are finding their own destiny. We as adults, we've gone through our own upbringing, and we've seen what's right, what's wrong. For me as well, I don't agree with parents that fight in front of the kids as well. I always say to my spouse, when I see a man telling the woman like F word in town, I'm like, you don't speak to a woman like that, young man. I'm like, you don't speak to a woman like that. Or sometimes it's women, like they tell
I was going to say, vice versa, women can.
their spouse to F off. And I'm like, you don't speak to somebody you're dating in front of everybody and telling them to F off. What happens then when you get home? You say sorry. I'm like, you can't do something like that and then expect to say sorry. It's okay. You can tell them to F off in the house. That's fine.
Yeah.
But you can't humiliate a human being, another human being. I don't know. I always see it as humiliating myself.
And that's a key point there. It is. It's about humiliating somebody else. Nobody has the right to humiliate anyone.
Yeah.
So whether it be male or female, kids, or you have no right to do that.
No, you have no right to humiliate. So I was once where were we coming from? I think Hope was doing acting. No, we were coming from Panwood Studio for fitting. And this woman, she was giving all to her spouse. And she was telling him to if and blending, if and whatever. And then the poor guy now is saying sorry. And I was like, oh my God. Now is everybody, can you imagine it underground, how the crowd and telling them off? And I was like, you know what? Sometimes it's so sad that when we do things, we don't think about other people's feelings. Because for me, if I'm dating somebody, honestly, I'll wait until I get home and tell them off. Because I feel that is somebody's child. Why should I humiliate them on the street? And that's how I was raised with my parents. My dad was a very charming man. He would tell me that it is not fair for somebody to fight in front of the kids. He would tell me that I need to raise you guys in a proper way. And if he hears that somebody told me off, there was a time where I saw him losing his temper when my stepmother told me off. And it was like, you do not tell my children off. You do not even one day, because I think she told me off and she wanted to smack me as well. And he was like, you do not touch my children. And he explained to her how my children are raised. He was like, if she makes a mistake, she does not get away with it. You sit down and you explain the consequences. What happens when a child does not listen to their parents? He was like, and now I look at it, I think he made sense, because children are innocent. They don't know anything. And I used to like this thing before I go into psychology. I used to like say to my daughter, if you do this, I'm gonna take your tablet away. I think she was 5 when I go into psychology. She was 7, but now I look back and I was like, what the heck was I thinking? Because she's just gonna get naughty and just say, Mommy, we're gonna give it to me back. He's gonna ground me and give it to me back. But now, if they don't do what I ask them to do, we sit down and I find out, why haven't you done what I ask you to do? And I'm like, how would you feel if you were to say, Mommy, I want to do this, and then really I want to do it, or maybe can you pay for me to do this? And if I don't do it and I have the money, how would that make you feel? And then you miss something that you love, because your bedroom to be cleaned is something that you love, is your room. And I ask you to clean your room, you haven't cleaned, and she'll be like, oh, Mommy bear, I'm going to clean my room then. So I think it's very, very important to actually to treat someone with respect and having more time. Like when you were saying that your daughter screams, and then when you tell her how amazing she was, and then she goes, oh, okay. And I think that is very, very important. And also men to know, if there's a man that is watching, hi Kamal, I know you're watching, don't put the problems under there and lock the key.
No, because guess what?
Just communicate. I don't know who put the idea from men that you don't express your feelings when a woman is wrong. Some people prefer to say sorry, even if they've done nothing wrong. Honestly, I cannot stand a man that comes to me and says sorry for something he didn't do. And for me, when I'm dating a man has to be a man. I was raised by strong African men that have strong wills, that have strong family values. You don't come to apologize to me if you have not done something wrong. If you explain, or if we are arguing, it's not about Nomsa winning. It's not about you stand your ground so that I respect you tomorrow. So that when I want to do something, I have to think about what I'm doing, or maybe even so that you can communicate you want to stand your ground. If you have a woman, treat a woman with respect, and the women don't have some talking problems. Women go for coffee. I used to do this actually before I go into personal development as well. I go for coffee with girls. We chat, we have a chat, they talk about how wonderful their man is, how wonderful their life is, which is not true. And then when I get home, I want my spouse to behave like my friend's spouse because they've told me that how wonderful they are and blah, blah, blah. I used to do this, but now I don't. I just know that my spouse is unique and he's special. Even when he screams, even when he hides his feelings, I know that he's unique, he's special. So I don't compare him with anybody else. So I think that is important as well, not to go and comparing our children with the other people's children, and comparing our husband with other people's husband. Comparing our holidays. Oh, my friend went on holiday. Why can't we go on holiday? And your spouse will be like, interesting. Where did you see that? On Instagram is like, oh God. Or maybe Facebook, social media.
Yeah, social media is great for compare-itis, isn't it?
Yeah. Comparison. I'm just gonna compare Angie. Can you imagine? I watch a different coach and then it coming, why can't Angie do this? Starting to compare you with everybody else.
Because I'm not that other person.
Honestly, that is so depressing. I think it destroys relationship as well. People comparing. My clients, I was telling her the other day, she was like, she's beautiful, she's young, and she was like, why my friend they've got good careers like me, but they are married, they're in a relationship. I said to her, you don't compare yourself with anybody else. No. I was like, you have climbed the ladder, you are now up there, and people your age, she's like 13. I was like, people your age, they are still climbing the ladder to get up there, and they're still looking for somebody to spend the rest of their life. But you've done that one part, which is good. You are up there. So now we need to find the man that can just come with a vision and be an architect in your life, and you become a mentor and focus on having family, because now you've done it with your career, you've done it. So I was like, that's how life works. God doesn't give you all at once. He gave you all at once if you are one of the people that are really, really know how to claim their miracles. Yes, you can, but if you don't, and I was like, we need to take one step at a time. Instead of
it's huge, that is, that most people will compare themselves to other relationships and this, that, and the other. Like we can, well, this is what I think. And we compare our own thoughts with somebody else's in the sense of we think that they're thinking what we're thinking, and at the time they're not thinking what we're thinking whatsoever.
Yeah.
Everybody is unique and everybody's got their own path to take, and their own choices to make and their own thoughts. So yeah, I agree with that, in that sense of, don't compare your life with somebody else's or your relationship with somebody else's, because 90% of the time what they're putting on social media is anyway, they only want people to think that, and this is, so I had a conversation with somebody recently, and she was going down the comparitis and about this person being the same age, going to the same school, growing up together, blah blah, and then she's further ahead, and I was like, just because you was born in the same village, the same age, go to the same school, you had different parents, you had different upbringings, so you're going to have different beliefs and different thoughts. And to be honest, do you want what she's got? Well, no, not really. So why are you comparing yourself? Because you're going on a totally different path.
Yeah.
And she was like, I'd never thought of that. But yeah, we do. And we think, a lot of people with the, with the relationships should be a certain way. Who says? Every relationship's different.
Yeah, it's completely different. That's true.
So it's about owning that relationship and finding out, when you were saying about keeping it alive, keeping the relationship alive, find out what each other really does want.
Yeah.
Meet each other in the middle. It's not about you saying you want it one way and him saying it the other way. It's what do you both want? It's like with me and, my ex was, in the end, it turned out that we wanted completely different things. He's a surfer. He's all about water. I hate water. I'm a fire starter. I don't like water. When I was younger, I nearly drowned a couple of times. So I feel it straight in my stomach if I get too close to, don't get me wrong, I can get in a swimming pool, in a spa, can be in the sea, but only to a certain level. And then I can feel it in my stomach if I'm starting to get a bit, I don't like this.
But Angie, listen, Angie, the interest is what makes relationship very interesting. When you have different interests, you have to have in relationship, you have to have interest that you can do together
and separately.
Yeah, and separately. So it's the water that was perfect, where he can just go and have fun on his own.
Go surfing. I tried it once and I didn't like it.
You need to have, when it comes to relationship, you need to have a separate interest, and then you have the interest that you actually do together.
Yeah.
Like my spouse, he likes games. I don't have a clue what is about. When he tells me, I just have to listen and sit there. He'll be explaining to me. I'm like, okay. Then I have to ask the character. I have to ask what's going on. Then I go off and do my things. Like Saturdays, I go and practice music. And then I come home and we do things together, or either we watch a movie or we watch something else. We get an ice cream. And these kids seems to think they're in a relationship as well. They're like, it's ice cream time. Can we have an ice cream as a family? We're like, okay. So we eat ice cream and everyone disappears. So we watch a film and then we go to sleep. So I think it's very, very important. And also to our expectations. People have expectations when it comes to when they in a relationship, they expect other people to fulfill their needs. But that's not possible.
No
one can fulfill your needs. You have to fulfill your own needs. Like myself, I check me out. When I'm not happy, I check me out and find out what is making me unhappy. And then I have to work to fulfill my needs. And then when it comes to my spouse, we meet each other halfway. So I think that is very, very, very important. And also when you have kids as well, I'm not a parent. My dad was a man that worked really, really hard. He worked in school away from home. So I realized that the relationship that I had with my dad, although we were closed, he worked away. So I try with my children, I try to do things different. Money, it doesn't come first when it comes to my kids, because my daughter, my oldest one, has taught me a lesson. In 1 minute, she's 6 years old. Then the next, she's something old. And the time, it goes so quick, Angie. Spend time with your children.
Yes.
No screaming, no shouting at the woman that carries your children for 9 months. No screaming. If you are together, no screaming. If you are not together, I don't like this thing where women think they need to take responsibility. They deserve to have custody of the children. I'm sorry if there's any woman out there who is listening to me, they're not going to like this. Because for me, I believe that both parents, they have the right to actually look after the kids, and which is women end up letting men off. Do you know why many end up not supporting their children? Is because when the relationship ends, if anyone is listening, listen to this advice. When a relationship ends, if a man tries to go AWOL towards you as a woman, they try to fight you, or they try to, don't push them away, because they're trying a way out, not to support their children. Just ignore them, and they need to be in the scene. You didn't make that child on your own, that you end up, because being a single mom is a struggle.
Oh, yes.
Really, really struggle. So don't let them get off, because some women, they forget that what the future, and then they'll be like fighting and fighting and fighting. It's not an easy journey to actually not to fight a man. It's not an easy when you split up with somebody. But me, with my ex, when he used to come and he would be like telling me off, I'm like, a closed mouth is a blessed mouth. I'm like, you ain't going anywhere. We made this child together. I'll be in my heart. You ain't going anywhere. You're taking responsibilities. So I am going to fight you. You are taking responsibilities for your child. So that's what women need to do. They need to know that when you split up with somebody, because we don't know the future, no one knows the future. Don't let them easy way out and give them easy access. Men likes to fight a lot, but women, we get bitter. Really, really bitter in a way that we start like getting like revenge.
Yeah, and they use the children. You know, what I have when I've come across women that have used children as a tool to hurt, you know, the spouse, and I'm like, do not use the children. That child, as you know, if the father is a good father and never would hurt the child, they deserve to be in their life, and vice versa. If a mother is a good mother and they would never hurt the child, they deserve to be in that child's life. No parent has the right to use a child as a tool to hurt the other. The amount of times I've seen that, it infuriates me. And they go, well, I'm going to hurt you that way. And you're hurting your children too. And that's not fair, because that child doesn't have a choice in that. You know, if they're young enough, they don't have a choice. And
you have to communicate.
This happened to me a few years ago, not in a relationship with my daughter, you know, or my ex-husband, but it was in a relationship, family relationship. And somebody got upset. And instead of sitting down like an adult and having a conversation, right, you can't see your nephew. Not only was that can't see nephew, but then the daughter never got to see their cousin or their uncle. And that child was really quite young. And that, again, an adult taking it out on a child. It's one of my pet hates. Don't ever use a child as a tool. No. It's not fair.
You know, when I split up with my ex, it was hurting. There was so much pain. I could cry. I cried. I was like, God, why would I have to go through? But when he comes and tells me off, I'll be like, God, I ain't gonna let this man get away with it. I need him in my daughter's life.
Yeah.
Give me strength. Give me strength to go on. And the other person, they're hurting as well. They're feeling the same way as well. So he was hurting. I was hurting. So that's what happens in relationship. Sometimes, like, let's say when you're at home and not communicating, sometimes we can go in a selfish way and say, go all me, me, me. But if the relationship is not going well, both parties are hurting. And if there are children involved, the children are hurting. So that's why it's very, very important to actually find a way to forgive each other and resolve things. Forgiveness is the key in a relationship. Really, really.
Absolutely.
We went to the hospital last week. And then 2 weeks ago, we did go to the hospital. When we come out, everyone was lost. We were all lost. So I was like asking, and everyone, we need to go that way. I was like, I'm tired of getting lost. So I asked, and then they tell me off. And then last week we got back and they are reminding me what I did. I was like, what happens to the forgiveness? You have to forgive and forget. And they're like, oh, okay. I was like, yes, don't remind me the mistakes. And we're like, but today we know where to go. So it's like, don't remind me, forgive. I think it's very, very important.
That is a key point as well, because, I've found in past relationships where, somebody's got upset about something. There's been an argument or a discussion or whatever you want to call it. And then the next day they throw it back to them again. And I'm like, but that's done. And I've had that myself. And I'm like, well, I thought we'd sorted that out. Well, obviously we haven't, because you've now thrown it at me with about 50 other things. Don't get forgiveness. Let it go. Be an elf.
Yeah, you have to forgive.
Exactly.
Sometimes when I'm speaking to my ex, I ask something. He will remind me the things that I did before. I'm like, what happens to the forgiveness? You got to forgive and move on. Just forgive and move on. Because sometimes we always want to find someone to blame when things go wrong. And for me, it's something that I work on really, really hard. Instead of blaming myself or blaming anybody else, I have to find a way of healing. Because if we focus on blaming somebody, we're not going to get anywhere in life. Nope. We're not going to be happy.
Nope. Yeah, I remember speaking to you about that time when, when I think I heard it or saw it, or I can't remember where I found it, but it was, if you're pointing your finger at blame, there's always 3 pointing back at you. And when I first heard that, I just went, wow, because obviously in that time, when I started my personal development journey, I was very angry with the world. I was very bitter, grief stricken, abandonment issues. I'd got so many things going off in my head. And I was blaming everybody else for what they'd done, and I actually thought about the stuff that I had actually done that affected the breakdown of all the relationships. Because obviously, it wasn't just my ex leaving, it was all the other relationships, the family stuff that was going off. I had a massive part in that, massive. And when I actually sat there and forgave myself, because, I think we have to start with ourselves, because for me to forgive myself, then I was able to look at that other person and realize that I'd played a part in it. So then I could forgive them, rather than carrying that pain and that anger and all the other stuff with you. It's like that old, putting a bag on your back and just keep putting loads of stones in there. It's going to weigh you down. Get rid of it. Forgive yourself, forgive others. We all make mistakes.
Yep.
Nobody is perfect. And the person that's blaming somebody else thinks they're perfect. I thought I was perfect. It's all their fault. I'd not done nothing wrong. Me, I have got angel wings. Far from it. Absolutely far from it. When I look back now, I just think, oh, maybe I should have. Oh, I learned a hell of a lot.
Yeah.
Sitting there and having a word, not a word in a nasty sense, just sitting there and saying, Angie, do you think you could have done this a bit better? How could you have done that better? What did you learn from it? How can you take that forward? And I learned so much more about myself. So now you know, after all these years, I know that I'm a totally different person to who I was 9 years ago. I'm a totally different person to who I was 5 years ago from all the work. But I now know when I go into relationships how I can make them flourish.
Yeah.
Rather than, you know, explode them or implode them.
Yeah, I think that's true. I was my Martin's dad is in hospital, so his brother is going to AWA. He's going to AWA because this one, it does not reply text when he's being texted when they're communicating. And I was like, why would your family bother with you? They should know you by now, because I met you 7 years ago. Oh no, 8 years ago. I met him 8 years ago. Yes. On the 28th, that was 8 years ago. I was like, your family should know you better than I do. You don't return no text to no one. Anyway, that's who you are. I was like, why are they upset with you? Honestly, you text him the text, he'll read the message, he won't reply. I'm going to call back. Instead of just texting straight away, you say, I'll call back, but he doesn't call back, he forgets.
He forgets.
Or sometimes if somebody texts, I'll be like, can you look at who is texting you and return the text? Or somebody rings, he'll look at the phone and he'll say, I'll call them back. I'm busy with my family. I'm like, just pick up the phone. 2 minutes, the phone call. But that's why he always does things. And I was like, why would your family be upset with you? But then it made me realize sometimes we do have expectations of how people should behave. But that's not right, because people have their own things, how they should behave. And I've known him for 8 years. They've known him all his life. And I know when I text him, I don't text him anymore. I just call.
Just call him.
Yeah, if I text and say, baby, could you please call me back? He's not going to call me. So whether he's busy at work, I just have to disturb him if I need something urgent. And I'll say, can I please have this? Or can you please? And then talk if I want to talk to him, because I know I'm never going to get a text. So he's somebody that does that.
My daughter's
Yes, they
exactly
have
the
it.
same. That phone is permanently attached to her hand.
Yeah.
She ever replies? No.
That mine is, she's like that. She has her phone. Mine, if you send her a text, she replies, but you call her, she doesn't pick up the phone. Yeah, so I just have to send a text and say, Hope, could you please call me back? Mm-hmm. But you get to know people. It's like there's people, you get to know people, because when you actually work with somebody, you get to know people's character. This is who they are, but you cannot change somebody.
No.
Is the habit, like my spouse, is the bad habit that he has, that he does not return text. And even when I met him, he took my number. He didn't bother to text me for 2 weeks. I'd forgotten all about him. And, and after 2 weeks,
he should have known from then.
Yes, he goes, do you remember me? And I was like, yeah, how can I forget you? You're Martin dancing all night the other day. And he goes, yeah, sorry it took me this long. I was like, how long did it take you 2 weeks to actually text me and arrange a date? Yeah, that's how it took him. 2 weeks. Honestly.
But at least he's being congruent to who he is.
Honestly, yeah. So I was like, I said to him, babe, we have to be honest. Your family should know you by now. And I was like, it is annoying when you text somebody and they ignore you, but they should know by now that they can't get annoyed. Just leave it, the poor guy be. Yeah. And when he returns, they decide to return. Like, because sometimes they call him, he's sitting next to me and they're like, he's not answering the phone. And I was like, but you do know that the man he plays in the game, he does not answer phone calls. So ring me and then I'll pass the phone to him. So he's dead. Honestly, his dad, it does not fight him. Him and his dad, they never argue. He's dead. If he's looking for him, he can't find him. He says, no, sir, give me my son, please. He knows he'll get his son.
I love that. He won't answer the phone, so they ring you and you go, speak to him.
Speak to your dad. Yeah. And that's how you have to get to know people, the person you're dating, and get to know their world, and get to know, even like with him as well, like he knows what I do. When he goes on TikTok, I'm not on TikTok. When he's on TikTok, he says something like for business advice, he would just send it to me and say, oh, I found this. Can you have it? So it's just all about to get to know somebody with their mistakes, and get to know who they are, and not judging them as well, because it's so frustrating. Can you imagine, Angie, you're living in your own world, let's say, and then you have your spouse, they have their own world. Can you imagine the stress and the depression trying to make them live in your own world? Trying to make them be the person that you imagine them to be.
Exactly. No, you get with somebody. When you meet somebody, you get with somebody and you like them for who they are. That's why you get in a relationship.
Yeah.
So why spend the time trying to change them?
No.
That mentality, I do not understand. I no.
Angie, it's 2 minutes to 2.
I know.
Do you have any words of encouragement? Maybe this thing of changing somebody.
Well, that I'd like to leave them with that. When you meet somebody, you get together with somebody because you like who they are. Do not spend your time trying to change them into somebody that they're not. Remember why you fell in love with them, why you got in a relationship with them. Yes, okay, people change as you're going along, and we don't see the entire picture when we first get with somebody. And then if that person is not for you, then that person is not for you. There is somebody out there for you. Don't try and change somebody else. That's my bit.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Angie. For me, is forgiveness. Healing wounds and moving forward is very, very, very important in a relationship. Forgiveness is the critical component of having a healthy relationship. If someone in your spouse, they've wronged you, communicate with them. Explain how it's making you feel. And then it got the process of healing, knowing that we are not perfect. No one is perfect. And don't let things explode. Men, do not hide your feelings inside the cupboard. And then that's why people get sick. If there is something that you need to get out of your chest, just get on with it. You don't need to hide things. I don't know who told men that there should be a man and man up. No, you don't, actually, because the feelings that you have the same feelings as women we have. We are human beings. We cry, we get hurt. So why should you hide your feelings and never apologize for something that you did not do? I rather you give me a kiss than apologize. I cannot stand a man that is weak, that he apologizes just to win the argument, but some men do it. If you know you haven't done wrong, just say, honey, we're gonna have to meet each other halfway and sort things out, and just give each other hugs and kisses and forgive each other and just move on. Never apologize for something. You can both apologize to each other. That is fine. But if you apologize for the sake of winning the argument, that's just wrong. Do you know what happens? The other person end up feeling they're not complete. They're not the relationship is not fair. It's one-sided. So let it be two-sided by hugging it all out. She apologized. He apologized. Everybody's happy. God bless everyone and live with grace. And just got to go.